Well, joining the conversation this morning, we have Catherine Afeku. That name may ring a bell. We saw her at the Save the Judiciary demonstration. She's a former minister of tourism, and of course, she's served in other portfolios as well at the presidency under Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Joining her, we have Nanayao Sapong. He's a political aide to Alan Kojo Tremating. He's with the Movement for Change. Both of them join the conversation this morning, and both of them looking pretty colorful. Good morning.
Good morning, Ben.
It's your first time, at least as far as I am concerned, on the AM show, correct?
It is true, it is true. Not since you did the renovation. It was good. I must compliment you and management. It was good.
Thank you very much. So we have a bit of a tradition here where if you come on, for everybody who comes on, we give you about a minute and a half to share your thoughts on anything that is a burning issue for you. So what I'm going to do is throw it to Nanayao Sapong to lead the way so that you can follow his lead, since this is your first time on the show.
Orientation.
Orientation, yeah.
Yeah, Ben, good morning.
Nanayao, so briefly, let's make it brief,
Yes.
straight to the point.
When last did you check on some of your classmates who you completed GHS and SSGS with?
There are some pages we're on, so once in a while you would. Did you say JHS?
Yeah.
JHS, it's been a while. I think a few weeks ago I spoke to someone, I think she was my junior. I spoke to one person.
It's become very important. Last week we lost a colleague of ours, and when we were having a discussion, we created a page whilst we were having a discussion, then we noticed that in my class alone.
I should clarify though, I mean JSS.
I see JSS.
And at SSS, in fact, I spoke to someone else too recently. So one person from each category.
I don't know why I know you all went to the JSS and JSS and SSS.
Catherine O levels.
A-level.
Well, at least the women
you should know
look
Look at the age gap. I did the proper one.
That's right. O-level, A-level. Well, I'm proud to come from the JHS and the S.
Why do you feel slighted when it wasn't meant to slight you?
Why did you have to make that correction?
I had to correct it because I did not attend JHS and SHS.
So, Ben, when we did, we noticed that in my class alone, we had lost about 10 people and we did not know about. And some we could have been able to assist to survive. Some little support for hospital bills and to care for their illnesses, and we kept blaming ourselves. And one question somebody posed, or one comment somebody posted on the page was that we are here gathering donations to go and give to the family, but all she needed was some little funds to be able to pay for hospital, so bills at the hospital. And I think that we should look for the people we started life with sometimes, and then is important. Your little call to that person or coins to that person would help save a life.
Thanks for those initial thoughts. Over to you now, Catherine.
Very profound. I'll take a cue from Yao. Mine this morning is my concern for the school children who went hungry yesterday and Tuesday because of the knee-jerk reaction to abruptly truncate women who have been feeding our school children for the last 8 years, the caterers. I'm speaking for the school feeding caterers. As a mom and as a Ghanaian, it's a grave concern. So my beef is the children who have no partisanship went hungry because a decision was made abruptly to truncate the women who were to cook on Tuesday. Majority of the women that I spoke with over the weekend had already fixed foods, frozen gravies, and they were of the expectation that they will cook for at least a week or two before the transition or the handing over. So we are using this huge platform to speak to our president, to speak to our education minister, to look at the transition, give them the third term, to work with their sisters from the other side of the political divide. So the children will not be the victims of our retaliatory politics. That is really my concern. Let's focus on the children. So the school feeding caterers are using this opportunity through me to appeal to our president and our Minister of Education to temper this knee-jerk reaction with mercy. Let the mothers go back to the kitchen, cook for the third term, and then we can do the transition. After all, it is a very normal process in our political system. You come in, you bring your people. So we're used to that, but give them this chance so the children do not suffer. I thank you.
The little bit and you ended with that, you mentioned those from the other side of the political divide.
Yes.
Must it always be this way? I was about to say, but this is nothing new, and you fittingly ended with that. You know it is common
the norm.
practice. Why? You're a politician. Why do you do that? Why must it be that once there's a change, even the people who cook, and in the first place, why must you even pack that arena with politically oriented people? Back then, when I was in secondary school, since he brought up secondary school,
yeah,
had to be people who were qualified. Our matrons and all others were not. I mean, why must it be like this? Why?
That's a very big question, and something that the whole nation, I mean, we're in that phase of discussing what is good, what is bad, and it will segue into the mass sacking of Ghanaian citizens in jobs. So I think it's a bigger conversation that needs to be looked at. There has to be a cutoff point where we don't go through this cycle of recycling people, competent people. So it is what it is. We have started this norm, this custom, and there has to be a cutoff point where we say enough is enough. They're Ghanaians, and let them stay on the job until such a time that either they retire or they'll be fired for incompetence. But it's becoming one too many. My beef is the children, Ben. The children have absolutely no inkling of what is happening. For one child, that school meal is all their hope is, and it's gone for 2 days. So that is really an emotional plea, and I'm hoping that our good leaders are listening to it. It wouldn't cost anything to just give them the next term. And then even the women who have been appointed to take over are also not prepared. And it will interest you to know that they're collaborating, at least from what I have heard and know, that, okay, you go ahead, you do the cooking whilst I get myself together, whilst I go to the market and buy my items. And it shouldn't be this way. At least a 2-week, a 3-week notice so they can prepare adequately and hand over. But a term, you have 4 years, 1 term, Mr. President, will not change anything. Let us focus on the children and not the scoring of points that we have been used to, unfortunately. We will need a bigger committee, a bigger conference, a bigger dialogue to look at this holistically without the lens of Party A or Party B. I'm focusing on the children. Let's feed them for this term.
So as we get into the papers, indeed, very justified cause. The children shouldn't be the ones that suffer. But let's not also forget, if we're dealing with these issues, there's a lot of corruption in that system, and even theft, where people who are supposed to be serving food to our children steal what is meant for the children. We ought to look at it holistically, all of that. Let's get into the papers now.
Yes, thank you. Ben.
Yes, let me start with the Daily Graphic. I'll tease you a bit. I know the story on everybody's mind this morning is Mahama's 120-day, the assessment of the pledge. But let's get into it. So on the front page, Mahama's government shows promise, but challenges loom. Citizenry assess 120 days in office. On tackling complexities of Galamsey, government pledges to fund pollutants removal from rivers and farmlands. MPs demand action on Odor River encroaches. And when you need to pay your taxes, levies, and all stationary obligations on ghana.gov, we can help. And the numbers are on the front page to get it and dial if you have to do that. I want to start from Galamsey. I think it's still a very topical issue that is affecting us very much. So government pledges to fund pollutants removal from rivers, farmlands. The Minister of Environment, Science, Technology and Innovation, Dr. Muntala Mohammed Ibrahim, has expressed the government's commitment to fund the remediation of polluted rivers and reclaim contaminated farmlands. And he's charged tertiary institutions to lead applied research in sustainable mining technologies and land restoration and train the next generation of environmental scientists, geologists, and policy advisors. And it goes on and on, but I'm saying I want to get into the details. And quote, eliminating illegal mining in Ghana, the will and the bill is to discuss and share knowledge on ways to eliminate the mining and also restore our rivers and farmlands. I'll add one story to this and then we can begin the discussions. Now I'm on page 20. Plan Ghana proposes establishment of pad banks in schools. The project manager for She Leads project at Plan International Ghana has proposed the establishment of sanitary pad banks in the various schools as part of the distribution process of free sanitary pads program. And let's begin here. I'll come back to do 2 more stories before we wrap up on the daily graphic. Nana Asapon.
Yes.
Your take on these stories?
I would do on 2 issues, Galamsey.
Yes.
I think that the calls have been so many, and currently looking at the steps being taken by the current administration, I think that I see some level of commitment in their policy formulations in trying to deal with the issues of Galamsey. With what the Minister for Lands is doing, plus what the Honorable Minister for Environment, Science and Technology, Mutala, is also doing, I see some sense of commitment in their approach to dealing with the issues of Galamsey. I've always said that there should be that commitment, that deliberate effort to wanting to deal with the situation once and for all. And aside whatever they are doing, cleaning our river bodies, trying to restore our lands, one other issue I would commend them to have done was the gold board. And I say that before today, I have stated that there was the need for us to have an absolute control over the gold market. If we have that control over the gold market, the Galamseyers will find it difficult to sell their product in the open market, because there should be a source from where you got the gold. There should be a registered and a licensed company that should have mined the gold. You should have some trace, and it will become difficult for them to go invest their money and cannot be able to sell these golds out. So it's a deliberate effort, and I think that the government ought to be commended. The sanitary pad bank, I'm so much for it, especially in the secondary schools and in the junior high schools. I'm so much for it. They should have a bank where the students can easily go in there. Because my fear is this: when these children,
against what the government's approach is to give them 3 a term for junior high and
what
4
I'm saying
a
is,
semester for...
it could be an addition. Because my fear is this: when you have given these sanitary pads to these kids and they go home, sweetie, once the person takes it home, it becomes a property of the house. And at the end of the day, would these children actually benefit from it? But once they
Of course they'll benefit.
Once they have a bank in the school that they can have access when it is needed. All right, when they can have access when it is needed. I think it solves some of the problems and the challenges that we are going to have. If you
Nanaya, let me get this clearly. Are you saying that when it is given to them in bulk to take home, and I understand the other side of what you're saying, keeping it in school so that as and when they need it, they may go, that could also have its own challenges at the schools. But are you suggesting, just for clarity, that when they take them home, maybe other siblings and even a parent might be tempted to use them? Is that what you're saying?
I didn't want to say it.
So say it and let's deal with it.
I didn't want to say it. But once it's in school, and there would be that level of control of usage and everything. I mean, you don't need more than 1 pack for the month. You understand? Some do not even use the entire pack for the month, depending on the number of days you flow. And in addition, you understand, in proposing this sanitary pad bank, I think that it is time, Ghana, we introduce even the food bank in our communities. I know that the Catholic Church, you started something about food banks and other things, some cathedrals. It's also very much important to be able to help the needy and the poor in society.
In fact, my church has a soup kitchen we've been running for. Soup kitchen.
And you never invited me back.
Well, it's not like technically
I'm very much
soup kitchen where we support.
I'm a needy and less privileged in terms of soup.
You're sitting here.
I think those who really need that are out there. We provide, and it's a church thing we've been doing for a while. We all contribute towards that. There are people who contribute specifically towards it as well, and they help a lot of these people. Some of them have even been taken to school for those who want to, and given scholarships.
And of course, the sanitary pad, there are some philanthropic agencies that go to these schools to share some of these sanitary pads. So if they have a bank in the various schools, these people, when they collect them, they could deposit them at the bank. And
Actually, I wanted to say that perhaps this challenge should be thrown to these philanthropists as an add-on to what government is already doing.
Of course, I mean,
you cannot say that let's not give it to them. We dress up from the home. So the pad bank should be
the pad bank does not mean they are going to fix them there.
I'm not countering your point. I'm just adding on.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm saying that in addition to what the government is doing, perhaps the pad bank will be there to serve as a go-to in emergency cases.
Yes, sir.
So philanthropists, NGOs, they should take up that, to add to pad what the government is doing. We can't throw everything on the government. Otherwise, the money is coming from us. Anyway, let me not take the win out of your stew, Catherine. What are your thoughts?
I'm just bemused by the gentleman talking about pads, and you have forgotten the menstrual cycle is every month. So if you leave it in the school, there's going to be a problem. So we have to have the trust in the nucleus family where they will also have it at home. But that was just my comment. The pad bank is a brilliant idea, and we should do it. But my topic is the 120 days.
Okay, then let me get a bit of details out there, and then we can get straight into it. On the front page, it says President John Dramani Mahama has made substantial progress in fulfilling his 120-day social contract with Ghanaians, achieving 72% of his 25 key pledges within the self-imposed time frame. I know that Joy News, we graded him 52%. So I think this is coming from the Office of the Presidency, the 72%. A detail that says, this is from Daily Graphic. All right, they are giving that 72%. So over to you now.
Well,
I'll come back to you.
I don't know where they got their figures from, but it will be very fair to be objective. Okay, in the past, we've had this norm of 100 days. You are assessed by your 100 days. So that in itself of moving it to a quarter of the year was something different. So you can't take that away from the innovation of making it 4 months so you have enough time to assess. That's the first point. The second point, before I get to my mark, is I think it was a misstep. You saw, I watched the entire thing yesterday, I must tell you. So I'm not just throwing numbers. I want to tell you, a lot of people are hurting. And it's difficult for me sitting here after 4 months not to be an advocate of what is going on. There were glaring issues that I felt our president missed the opportunity to add it. First, we missed a few of our 120 promises, but we are working on it. I didn't get that sense of, it was more of we have achieved. The biggest one is the campaign message of as soon as we take office, we will take out e-levy. As soon as we take office, we will take out e-levy. And because of our missteps with e-levy, a lot of people voted as a result of the promise of eradication of e-levy. And I know there were members of parliament, my colleagues, who were on the finance committee, who were aware that it was a conditionality from the IMF. They kept it mute. And now our president told us last night that because of certain, conditionalities and how it's attached to the World Bank, we cannot move it as yet. For me,
COVID levy or e-levy?
It's COVID levy. E-levy is gone. COVID is still there. If you bought something today at ShopRite, you see it. It's still there. So for me, that's a failed promise. And we have to be very blunt with that. That's the first one that really is hurting people. The second one, which should even have been my first, is the intermittent power outages. I don't want to borrow our word because we had doom saw. Now this one is doom. It just happens, and we need my friend, my younger brother, Ajinapo, to just give us a schedule. Because the way it's going, you can't plan. You wake up, it's off, it's on, it's coming. So your day is a bit, unplanned. So that was an issue that I was hoping to have heard a sentence. I mean, we have to be objective. It's 4 months. Our president has 4 years. So, but in that 4 months, it was the NDC that promised, as they will give us 26 promises in 4 months. So it is not us, the citizenry. It was a social contract they had with us. But there is a glaring issue. Doom. There was no mention.
Which parts of the country? Because I'm not to belabor your point, but I haven't actually experienced it yet.
Are you still in this country?
I am. Perhaps it happens when I'm not home. So I'm just asking, which areas are we seeing?
The country.
Maybe
whole
let's
country?
let's be more
The
specific.
country.
Let's be more specific. Get into some angles of
Angles. So let me tell you.
You don't have to state specifically, but which part of town do you live in?
Well, if I say that, then I'll...
Yeah.
I mean, if you said East Legon, it doesn't mean we know. I'm not asking you to say America House or something. East Legon, Adrigano is vast. I'm just saying which part of town?
East Legon.
East Legon.
Yes, we get it. Yes.
Okay.
I think it was.
All right.
Yes,
How
it was
often?
off. Quite often. Quite often.
Okay.
Quite
All
often.
right.
So, and it's not just me. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about the citizen. If you were to do Vox Pop across the streets, people are suffering because of this intermittent power outages. We know that. And we all know. So we need to let the government know that, please, they had 8 years on the bench to prepare. So the first 4 months, these ones are the missteps. I have a quick list that I want you to realize that my expectation and that of a few people, okay, mass sacking and termination of appointments. We had just brought that up in my school feeding plea, but it's becoming a bit too much. And we're all Ghanaians. Yes, the tit for tat has to get to a point where we stop. We are guilty. And I'm not sitting here pontificating.
Guilty of what?
Moving people, bringing in people. Every government has been doing that, but it gets to a point where when it's getting to the conscience of the nation, there has to be a point where we all sit and say, where do we stop? Where do we put a lid on this? So the average family, a father goes home and is like, okay, I'm no longer working. And some of them are nearing retirement. Where are they going to get a job? How do they put body and soul together? So there's a human element in this. It's not a policy, in this cycle of recycling people. And there has to be a stop, a cutoff point. And that was a problem. Now, cocaine scandals. I don't know whether it's something that could have been brought up, but security, it had to go under national security. All of a sudden, the exuberant and the boisterous attitude of those who are so emboldened to do this, it is not good. So it needs to be looked at. Now, the one that really, really got to me was 14% only. 14% of women participated in President Mahama's cabinet, and he had promised us over 30%. That is a personal issue that I think needs to be looked at. He should have told us, 52% of the population, that, look, I promised you 30, I couldn't do it, I gave you 14, give me time. So that is on my list. Now, I have to
wrap it up.
I have to tell you, this final one is the increase in market and domestic fires. There's one too many. So these are the areas of concern that, for me, of course, you can't expect the president to say everything in his 40 minutes, but these are pertinent issues that Ghanaians were expecting, maybe a sentence or something. The cocaine issue, the light.
But on the cocaine issue, I thought yesterday's presser was to address the promises that he made.
The promises
the
made.
Cocaine saga is not in there.
National security. Security. So it's not the drug in itself. It's a security, protection of our nation, our borders, our seas, our lands.
Right.
So it is not the menace. But you look at the big picture, it is a national security issue. So
And the mass
for
sacking?
me, the mass sacking
Wasn't part of his 120-day social
job
contract.
creation. It was. See, when you look at the big picture, it doesn't have to be the exact wording. Job creation. When you recycle humans, you're taking people out, putting people in. It's not job creation. So if I use the titles of the promises, I have the whole list. It's job creation. So when you move Sweetie and bring in Yao, you have not created any job.
Ben.
You just replaced another Ghanaian. So I want us to look beyond
All right.
the point scoring.
You mentioned a few things, and my power, like I said, if I compare it to last year, for me, that's why I was asking where you stay.
Yeah.
If I compare it to the last 2 years, the past 2 years, and many people know where I live, so there's nothing to hide, my power situation is much better. In fact, nowadays when it goes off, the highest it's gone off in my memory is 30 minutes. If it goes off, there are times where it's gone off for about 5 minutes.
Where do you live? How come? Are you being favored?
I live towards the Parakou end.
Okay, so
It goes off for
that
about
close to us,
5 minutes.
You know which part of town is
It goes off for about 5 minutes, and it's back
he
on.
lives close to Asedunkeche's residence. So.
Well, you live in East Legon. I mean, if we had to compare, I'm sure your end would be better. But this power situation, you see, a lot of the time, sweetie, last year, when I would come and talk about electricity, part of it was not just my experience. People would call you. People would send you messages. Charlie, the power, this and that. So if that was Doomso, and you say this, some have said it is Eyezu, Eyeza, or Doom. I don't know, because I'm not saying the situation is perfect, but sweetie, if you asked me now, I think my situation may be 70, 80% better compared to the power outages I was facing last year.
Yeah,
no one is saying it's a perfect
Exactly. That's why I said.
But if you come and create a picture as
no,
though...
it's not creative. It is a problem, Ben.
Now,
it is a problem.
It has been a problem. It remains a problem. It is not as bad as... It's like that saying.
So that's
I may not be where I want to be, but thank God I'm not where I used to be.
Yeah, but it is a concern.
Let's be objective about it.
That's what I'm saying. I started with saying I'm objective. It is a concern.
Right.
There is power outage, and there are power outages.
Great.
So it is a concern.
Then there is also the bit about it took them 8 years to prepare, to come and do this, solve the power issues, among others. If we wanted to go down that line, we could talk about how long it took the former president, Akufo-Addo, to come to power. He had, decades, about 3 decades plus, preparing to take the reins of government. If we are to judge him by that length of time, I don't know whether... He was in office for 8 years. I don't know whether it would be a fair yardstick, to use Catherine. Then you come to the point of mass sackings. And I ask myself, look, like you rightly said, it's a tit-for-tat, zero-sum, winner-takes-all environment. Nobody wins. But you also cannot say, I know when each administration has been in power, when the MPP was in power, there were some NDC elements who were made. When I say made, from Kufuor to even in terms of getting good business. Some of them because they were very professional with their work, others because they were beneficiaries of a system. And when the NDC is in power, there are some NPP people. I mean, you would know that there are some of your colleagues who made exactly my point. We have to broaden that so that it's not so much of when I come, it's my people. When you come, it's your people. It's a general problem. When you talk about, you say cocaine scandals, I beg to differ. You see, on that issue, I have 2 thoughts. We should call them busts, cocaine busts. And the other bit about Intim Forjo, I don't even want to do that because when he had the opportunity and sat here on News File, I don't know what we could get from there. But there's no scintilla of evidence that has been brought so far on that. Rather, what I have seen are busts of cocaine. My only concern is that the cocaine shouldn't turn to Kukunte somewhere and that we should get frequent reports on them, how they are dealt with, and all of that. My curiosity, if we were not getting such busts, even from last year and the year before, what does that say? It could be one of 2 things. It's either things were happening, and for some reason, they were funneling through because the system intentionally allowed it to, or there is an increment in it now.
No, people are
those are 2 points to look at.
Emboldened.
All right.
That is
and my final point, I find it surprising. You see, I always say that there's no perfection anywhere. One thing about me, when I go around town, I talk to a lot of people. In fact, sometimes I want to get into a trotro, but unfortunately, it's not exactly the best situation for me because everywhere you go, people seem to identify. It's difficult. But when I can, I board an Uber. When I go to the barber shop, when I go to my cobbler, I speak to these people. Just 2 days ago, on the back of that avocado conversation, I saw an avocado seller in Labone and asked her about the prices. I told her, oh, Mintobio, but and someone suggested, and she told me, oh, mine are 15 CDs and 20 CDs for some of the biggest ones. The feeling I get out there is that things may not be where we want them to be, but things are definitely not. I spoke to a filling station.
Then wrap it up so we can
yes,
and I'll tell you exactly.
And I will have the last word because
you see that road to transitions. You see that road.
These are my.
You see that road to transitions. There's a filling station that I think is Total. Nanaya, you would probably know the place. But if you're coming from the other end before you, yes. And I spoke to a gentleman there. There was someone broadcasting, and he was telling me, look, some of, like the demonstration, for example,
Bernard,
He had his own
Bernard,
thoughts on it, Benjamin,
Bernard,
by the
yeah,
way. But I think it's not fair.
Let me.
The sort of
Let me bring
approach
my
you are taking
points.
to
No,
the
no, you are the host.
performance.
I have
so you
been
go
brought
ahead.
here to give my opinion, and I'm telling you, doom is an issue. It might not be for you. Cocaine scandal is one too many. It is an issue, and for me, speaking on these issues is important. So we come in here and we get the host to talk with us, but you cannot sweep it under the rug. The one that really hurts, that I have also admitted, that it is a cutoff point must be reached by both parties.
All right.
That there cannot be mass sacking whenever a new administration comes in. It has to stop.
I want to get Nana Sapon's thoughts on some of
But
these
Dumso
things.
is real.
Nana, something
Dumso
she
is
said,
real.
said Ghanaians are still hurting because the COVID-19 levy, which was promised to be revoked, hasn't been repealed, hasn't been repealed yet. And so Ghanaians are still suffering, or hurting, that's the word you used.
Hurting.
You said that the mass sacking, the security issues, case in point, cocaine saga, and all the items really on her list that she's listed.
So
if you can
Lucky
remove your
ones.
political hat and speak to us as a citizen of this country, and let me hear your
And
assessment.
the objective.
I've never worn a political hat.
Well, you are a political assistant to Alan Shamanting, and it is a political...
The man that majority of the Ghanaians think has been very hardworking and very objective and very industrious. And so for that matter, you should always hear me speak objectively. But when we are taking 120 days, I think that the 120 days had specifics, all right? If you had listened to the president, he had listed the key areas that he was going to tackle within the 120 days, out of which he was able to achieve 20, according to him. They were 25.
Out of the 26.
26. He achieved 20. And so if you're going to do the mathematics, all right, it means that he got close to 80%, if I am not mistaken. And if you come into academics, if somebody scores even 75%, I think that you would give the person some level of thumbs up. Now, if we're going into the specifics, all right, I would want us to look at whether or not he achieved them. From being the lean government, of course, yes, he reduced the number of ministers. If you are talking about the national dialogue on economics and all of that. But in dealing with the ones that has direct effect on the ordinary Ghanaian, okay, are we able to look at that and say that he also achieved? If you ask me, seated here as somebody who is interested in business, yes, he has. The dollar before the elections was in excess of 16 cedis. Today, as we speak, the dollar is 13 cedis, 57 or so, 67.
Thereabouts.
Thereabout. Of course, as a business person or as somebody who is interested in the industrialization, I would be excited about it. Yes, you can attribute it to the trade war and all of that. But if we were able to say that COVID and Ukraine war affected our economy and that we could justify the running of the dollar to that point, we should be happy that there is a trade war and we've taken advantage. But of course, the trade war alone does not do the magic. It is the fiscal discipline that they have introduced and the monetary policy that is in place. And if we are able to actually sustain it, and even the trade war goes, we should be able to still have a very stable forex, for that matter. In dealing with these mass sacking.
Before you go there, since you've spoken about speaking from the end of business, and you say the exchange rate is better, which is a good thing, but the business community is also crying about increased tariffs, water and electricity.
You don't get up to do
14%.
everything. The point is that the forex is gone down, inflation is gone down. If you're looking at the elements that the business community is finding in their basket, majority of these elements are stable. Fuel is gone down. So once these things are coming down, of course, what made the tariffs go up? The proposals that were sent to the PURC, all right, they stated in there that they had issues with forex, they had issues with the prices of fuel, all right, and other operational effects. And so if we have two of these major items coming down, definitely the next move would be that tariffs would try to see if we can bring tariffs down. But in moving forward, mass sacking. We had 8 years in government. 8 years, and you could not regularize most of these appointments. 8 years. People were paid over the counter. 8 years. And so if someone has come and the person has found a lacuna and has decided to take advantage of it, I mean, you had 8 years.
All right.
Somebody sat in the office for 8 years.
No,
Go
ahead. I just realized that you've not actually had enough time, so go ahead.
Nakop.
But
Nakop. You see, there are two aspects of it. There are those who would have the news and keep the news because of their own peculiar interest, and there are those who would get the news and bring it out there for those who are involved in these activities to know that when we get you, we will put your face on the screens. When we will get you, we will put your name out there. All right, so you have to look at the advantages of it. Is bringing out the news important, or hiding it and trying to do diplomatic issues? No. This is the NACOP and the security whatsoever have decided to use this approach to broadcast every single bust that they come into contact with.
Okay.
Another administration decided not to, for their own reason. Nobody is fighting them, but let's allow them to do their work. Power outages. Ben, we have been talking about ECG and VRA and been talking about their infrastructure problem that they have. And you do not expect a government within 4 months to be able to fix all of this. Of course.
So you do agree there is power outages. Ben doesn't feel it. There is power outage.
But not as we do.
I think you should
but
be fair
but
in
not
your
the extent.
I never said there were no power outages.
Not
what
the
I
extent.
said was that the extent to which we were facing it last year is not what.
That is what I'm talking about.
There is.
The extent.
You shouldn't be picking and choosing when it was worse under your tenure.
The extent. And of course, some of these contracts that were signed with the independent power producers were done by the previous administration. If we're actually able to deal
actually inherited more
with
Mahama 1.
Mahama 1, but we had 8 years to deal with it. And of course, I want to agree with Ben. Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo had been in opposition. He had been wanting to be president since 1998. Went to Sunyani with Papa Kufuor. When he lost, he went to London. We brought him back. He came, he stayed. 8 years in opposition, 8 years in power, 16 years.
So you're talking about the person. I'm talking about the political party. The party.
Of course.
Okay, we have to move the conversation forward. So at the risk of sounding biased, I want to be objective and stick to the research that we independently did on the 120
Yeah,
days
and I'll put in one, I forgot one point.
And I want to say that if we are assessing President Mahama's 120-day social contract, then let's limit ourselves to the promises he made that he wanted to deliver on within those 120 days. Some of the issues that you've raised are issues that they inherited, not we. I mean, there were issues that we were experiencing during your 8 years tenure before you left the government, and he took over. In terms of the power outage situation, we know that it was there during President.
We also inherited liabilities.
Yes. Exactly. So I'm just saying that so in our assessment of his 120-day social contract, let's stick to that. Now, from our independent check, 13 out of the 26 of these promises have been completed, which makes 52%. 7 of these promises are in progress, which makes 28%, and 5 have not started at all, which makes 20%. So overall, we scored him 52% in terms of delivering on the promises that he made to fulfill within the 120-day time. I also think that the issues you're raising about cocaine busts and those are issues that came up in this administration, and we know that investigations are ongoing. Although we've not heard the conclusion of these investigations yet, we're waiting to see how they, actually just navigate all this. But let's not use those as yardsticks to measure the
Why not?
120
It's,
days.
it's a germane issue.
No, I'm saying
why
that.
not? That's your opinion.
Okay.
Why not use them? These are issues concerning Ghanaians.
Okay.
So we
But
can't pick and
assessing
choose.
his social contract.
Yes, and I have it here. It is embedded in the 120 days of governance. That's why I started off by saying, let's be objective.
Right.
These are issues bothering Ghanaians. So you can't be part of the applause crowd.
Remember I said
and not
that
bring out
some of these
what
issues-
are germane.
Right.
What are the germane
Remember that I
issues
just said
bothering
that
people?
some of these issues were inherited, right?
It
You
still
agree
makes it
with
an
me?
issue.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it's not an issue. I'm saying that for the benefits of our audience who are listening to us,
But that's why
if
they were
we are
voted in
assessing
office.
120,
You can't sit here and say, oh, I took over from another presenter. She had an issue, so that's why I'm not performing. Okay. No. Once you have been given the mandate, we have to judge you with the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's why we were voted out. So I started off by being objective. There are issues that bothers on the 120-day social contract.
okay.
Mass sacking. If you put it under employment, a Jumara has been done. There are issues. They have created these policies, but people have been sacked. So that is where I bring it out.
Right.
You don't have to read verbatim the 26 points.
Okay.
Energy, green transition, and the new minister moving along, missing containers. Doomsaw is an issue. So we as citizens, a responsible opposition, have to address the issues that Ghanaians are talking about.
So do this
That
for
is
me.
all.
How would you grade President Mahama's 120-day in office?
You want me to give you a number? I'll tell you at the end of it.
No,
I'll tell
give me
you.
a number so that we can move forward from this conversation.
I'll tell you.
But I have.
Okay.
I want a bite.
I'll tell you. I have
Bite
it.
on it.
I have the.
Above 50 or below 50?
I will be below 50.
So, Nanaya, if you
okay.
just, you mentioned if a new host takes over and the camera had a problem or the lighting had a problem, right?
Yes.
The problems that would persist because it's not about the host, it's about the logistics. It's about the structures, the technical
Thank you.
bits. So it's not about if a new host takes over or something of the sort.
It's the structures.
But you see, the
And if
point
you're
I want to
moving the
make,
technocrats out of office, the structures.
I believe one of our foremost problems as a country is that we refuse to acknowledge when the other side does anything good. I've said it in the past that, yes, I may have been critical of the Mahama administration then,
Number one.
then the Akufo-Addo administration, and now the Mahama administration again. But we seem to fail to realize that every administration that comes, no matter how poor, has something good in it. There's someone who is, nobody who is so good that he never does wrong. And there's nobody who is so bad that he never does.
And I was
good.
objective, I said
My
that.
problem with our politics is that once we're on the other side,
You don't see
everything
Well, it's not everything.
on
So
the
give
other
us a
side
score.
is
Give us a
absolutely
score.
wrong.
Come on,
And-
Catherine,
and
give us
Ben,
a
it's
score.
not about scoring. No, it's not everything. See, you need a responsible opposition. If we are all, it's not a one-party state. We all can't have the same thoughts
All right.
and opinions.
So let me wrap-
Nanaya wanted to
I-
say
I-
something.
so, see,
Nadaya is holding brief for the government, so that's all right.
I'm holding brief for Ghanaians. Ghanaians who have had that sense of.
Nanaya, interesting. You're holding brief for Ghanaians.
Yes.
So whom are you holding brief?
Exactly, that's what I'm
No,
wondering.
You.
I am
You
holding-
say he's holding brief for the government. How?
I am holding brief for the Ghanaians who are not part of the applause crowd.
Okay,
so
all
I
right.
am holding
All
brief
right,
for the
Nadaya, go ahead.
Ghanaians who are
Have
not
my
part
30
of the
seconds.
applause
30 seconds,
crowd.
please.
30 seconds.
Remember?
All right.
Let us not
We have
forget that if you take the 26 goals that His Excellency JDM had set for himself, most of these ones has to do with policy and programs that ought to be able to be formulated. Now, if you are going to implement a program or a policy, all right, you need time. You cannot just do this within 3 months or 4 months. We should ask ourselves, have these programs and policies been initiated? If they have been initiated, you should be able to give them a pass mark. It is once that step has been taken, that deliberate and conscious effort has been taken,
Okay.
you should be able
I
to
think
grade
that
it.
No,
Women's Bank. No, hold on, please,
I
please.
think that the
Oh, let me-
metrics
let
to
me-
measure.
let me
Go
land,
on,
let me
please.
land.
Yeah, if the action has not been
Let me land.
implemented,
Let me land.
how do you give a pass?
You do not need, you cannot open a women's bank in 3 months. If you know the processes in getting a bank open.
No, we
What he has said.
didn't
Now,
ask President Mahama to give us 120 days social contract.
Okay, Catherine, let's hear him out and wrap up
the
for us,
budget.
Nanaya, in 20 seconds. We have to.
He has committed a seed money. That is an aspect. The processes to opening the bank has also been triggered by the finance minister and his team. You cannot just wake up in 3 months and see the bank opened. No. If you look at the issues of your friend is saying, code of ethics that he launched, I had an issue with it. What issue did I have with it? We should look at it from the nationalistic view, where it will be backed by law, that another president will not come and say that these are ethics that were
there's a
done by...
bill. There's a Conduct of Public Officials bill that's...
it's in the law. It's Article 28
no, you're
something.
saying it should be enshrined in the Constitution. I'm saying there is a bill.
But, sweetie, for the last word, I want to give credit to Dr. Abu Sakara that everything that we have discussed, in fairness, being objective, we need to look at the big picture.
Okay.
See, because it's very difficult. Where I was coming from was when you put yourself in that stricture of I have 120 days, I said I'll do this, and I haven't done. You tend to lose the big picture. Okay. The big picture is job creation, giving hope to the people. And
hopefully,
shall we wrap on that because we've expended practically.
Right. That's it for the newspaper, for the Daily Graphic newspaper. Our team Vani Water Project gets funding from UK-based citizens. Ladma Assembly members reject MCE nominee, call for a crone. And UPSA inaugurates new police station to boost campus community security. Thumbs up to UPSA for doing that. That's it for the Daily Graphic. Pick a copy for yourself and get into the details of all the stories. Ben?
You know what I'm going to be teasing you with after?
What? Avatar.
I'm saying it on live TV so that when I do it.
I corrected myself.
You're from the region.
No. But sometimes a word hits you and you are thinking English, not thinking in the local language. So there it is. I think we should cede to our guests to... Nanaya, would you like to quickly...
So the New Republic, I have the New Republic. Mahama's strong start in 120 days. No scandals, CD climbs, inflation falls. EC boss in hot seat as ashes of conflict trace back to Galamsey. Bites at Abriwa Inkran. I wonder what this
Abriwa Ninkran.
That's the place. Yeah.
No, I did
Galamsey
I did Tamale Secondary School. No.
Okay, that's why.
Yes, the best school, unfortunately. So Mahama settles Hajj board debt, and then we have 762 billion spent on unused food every year. Third Force Alliance backs Chief Justice suspension. And I think one of the interesting things that I would want us to look at, Edubon, he moves to justify charges, reveals NSB spending. Please, Ben, let us be honest. How can you tell me that you want to use government money to sponsor opposition parties' activities? That is so irresponsible. And he should be ashamed of himself. Who sanctioned it?
But what if that actually happened? What if it did happen?
No, that's what I'm saying. If it did happen, who sanctioned it? He should be ashamed of himself for doing this with our money. And I posted it on my Facebook page. I said, I now understand why at IPAC meetings, some of these opposition parties were bootlicking every single thing EC and the NPP were saying.
You think there was influence?
What else?
But is it not a stretch taking it all the way to IPAC?
Where
proof.
Oh, I was part of IPAC.
No, but
at least for the season.
Okay, so did you receive any inducement?
That is so we were only two people who would stand up to challenge what they were doing.
So no, you've not answered my question. Did you receive any?
I will not have the confidence to say what I'm saying.
Okay.
This is a shame that you would take hard monies that belongs to suffering Ghanaians to sponsor activities of a political party shamefully. And you are emboldened.
We've technically not,
but
what would you
independently
say?
verified.
But independently, the letters that
they should
no, but the point is that by now his lawyers should have been out there because it's all over on social media. Everybody is discussing it. It's in the news. The print media is online media, and his lawyers are not saying anything about it. Of course, we will take it as it is. We should be ashamed. We should be ashamed of ourselves. Ben, that is not small money.
What actions do you think should follow through from here?
That one alone is a case on its own. I wish some Ghanaians would come.
He is saying if certain people don't keep quiet, he will start blowing the whistle.
Oh no, he should blow the whistle. You know what else is there?
Catherine, any surprises in that latest? I'm sure you followed it.
I haven't really followed this Dubois story. I just yesterday before. I knew that I was going to come here, so I knew something would pop out. Just the bail that was refused, and that was the only thing that I picked because I haven't really followed.
So he's in a nutshell alleging that people shouldn't accuse him of, spending all this money on himself because some of it was actually expended on some activities, some of which also benefited the opposition, like in certain committee sittings or whatever, and that is what.
I think that borders on ethics, if I care to venture, because I haven't really followed the issue. For me, it was bread and butter issues. Children are being fed, women are getting what they want. But if indeed that is true, as you're saying, it could be speculative, then it borders on ethics. And I just heard that the bail was not granted. And that's all I picked on that issue. But again, it's in court. It's still a case that's still being investigated.
And Anaya, that would be a form of peddling influence, right?
Exactly.
But are you done with your opinion?
Yes.
All right,
Done?
Catherine,
Okay.
let's get into
mine is Beyond 120 Days by Dr. Abu Sakara, focus on bringing relief.
So you have the Ghanaian Times.
The Ghanaian Times. So this one is really a good piece that he talks about, looking at the big picture, because he feels the 120 days, in fairness, being objective, is not enough yardstick. But if we look at the bigger picture, I think the conversation will take on a better feel.
Right.
So I liked what he said. And there was one that I picked that I like, Stakeholders Review Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security. This is Madame Bediakon talking about how you can actually convene peace. Women, people tend to forget that we are 52+% in this nation. And whenever they're having stakeholder engagement, talking about security, national issues, they don't seem to prioritize the voices of women. So this caught my attention. And
you are definitely my next guest on Women Power Politics.
I have to be here. I have to be here because it's time.
All right.
It's time. And the collaboration that normally we don't see. SOEs, they are under a bit of pressure. When you see New Times Corporation strengthen its ties with SNIT, I think there should be more of this. And this is on page 12. I read this and I liked it. There should be more of this collaborative and cross-fertilization of SOEs, sharing experiences and innovation, so they will be more robust, because otherwise they just drain the public purse. So this is a good start. So my stories, Abu Sakara, kudos for seeing that we can't be nitpicking the issues. Yes, but if we look at the big picture, for me, energy is a big issue.
All right.
Illegal mining is a big issue, and mass sacking of Ghanaians is a big issue. Let's look at the big picture and how collectively we can work this together. But you cannot expect all of us to be praise singing. That will be hypocritical.
True.
And as far as I'm concerned, the first 4 months of our president, I'll put it at 48%. I remember we went to GC. I remember your teacher would say, buckle up. Do
more room for improvement.
That's a sentence. More room for improvement. So it's objective. I'm not being political. It's objective. The first 4 months, yes, some good things. I support Gold Board. I have to be totally honest with you. I support Gold Board. But it is the implementation. Sami Jemfi, my friend, it is the implementation. So it does not become another partisan SOE. Please.
All right,
the implementation.
Gotta go. Ben, over to you.
So I shall just do headlines. I mean, we've taken a stab at most of the issues. Interpol Ghana police foil cross-border kidnap syndicate. I'm sure we followed that story.
Yep.
Tension in GRA as staff demand shake-up. There's also President Mahama appoints Professor Enyonam Yao Kwaukume as board chairman of the Ghana College of Physicians and Surgeons. One problem I have, I mean, I'm looking at the Ghana College of Physicians and Surgeons. I think, again, there's too much power concentrated in the executive for, I mean, I'm asking myself, Ghana College of Physicians and Surgeons, why should a president, for example, be? Do you get it?
Yeah,
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. It's what we've always done. But I'm saying once there's such overbearing power concentrated in one arm of government and one person, so to speak, I think, I don't even get
we had
why
proposed in the Great Transformational
we
Plan
do this.
that there was a need
Constitution
for
to
us to
protect.
amend that article that gives so much power to the president.
SOEs should be free of the executive.
SOE
State-owned entities, among others, should not have. That's a chunk of our problem.
Yes, yes.
Anyway,
Yeah.
Linda Oklu challenges new mayors to deliver. And I'm just looking at the mayor of Accra, for example, and the situation of flooding. We are not in the second, phase of the rainy season, which is usually around September, thereabouts, where you have very strong, rains and all of that. But this is an issue that we really have to look at, especially in Accra. The Overseer newspaper as well, and it says, no more harassment, will support businesses in tax collection. That's according to the GRA boss. Tension brews at Ministry of Education as Haruna Idrisu retains NPP appointees. And some of those mentioned, I saw some interesting. So, Hayford Sian at the Ghana Library Authority, a friend of ours who has been here once or twice. Dr. Christian Adaipoku, NTC boss, and then Catherine Ejapoma Apiapenkra, CA director. And that's another interesting bit. And of course, the spoils must also go a certain way. Also to congratulate Wisdom Kofi Dogbe. He is, the story says there was a surge of jubilation at the headquarters of the Cocoa Marketing Company yesterday as Dr. Wisdom Kofi Dogbe officially assumed duty as the new managing director. He used to join our news review every now and then, just about, especially last year. And I think
the lead up to election 2020.
We congratulate him on that. Guta hails government for CD stability, but let's not also forget that they've been talking about the increment in tariffs and how it could erode some of those gains. I think that's it for me. I'll not get into the stories. I just have an interesting question for you, Catherine, as we veer into sports. So if you start a project and you've not completed it, but you've made quite a bit of tracks, of course, governance is a continuum, right? Does it count as anything?
It should. Even initiating it is in itself an achievement. So it should.
Okay.
And that brings up to the question of the 10 stadia. Most of them are still. Kofi Adams, I know you're watching us. The stadia, there's one in my constituency. Esports Stadium is sitting there and just government money going to waste. So yes, when a government initiates something and they're booted out of office, you take assets and liabilities. So it is incumbent upon the new administration to look at what can be salvaged, what can be repaired, and what can be properly accounted for.
All right.
That's part of the business.
I mean, unfortunately for the National Cathedral, there's practically nothing to build on. But some good projects the erstwhile administration left, Agenda 111 and some roads and all of that. Yes. Do you know why I brought that up?
The stadium.
Also because I feel if you're going to judge Mahama's 120-day performance, those that have been initiated, that are not completed, there should be some, credit for that. But the problem is don't leave it at that stage. Complete it, though you've not been able to do it in your 4-month period. Ensure that you complete it. That is where you have actual progress. If you leave it at some point, then it will become another,
You just mentioned Agenda 111, and I think that the Minister of Health should take a step. Government might not have the money to push it all in, but we have some very private sector individuals who might be interested. The missions, those who are into traditional medicine practice. I think if he's able to approach some of these people who would be interested, they could invest, complete these projects, and maybe have government will have an equity or probably build, operate, and transfer. Once we started, we can't just leave them in the bush. We need to find money somewhere. If we are not finding the money, let's invite the private sector from these areas who would be interested to push the agenda to be completed.
All right. Well, this is where we're going to have to sew it up and
Yeah. Let's end it up. I wanted to ask Catherine about Justice William Atugube's, reflections on the GBA, the suspension of the Chief Justice and all that. But I don't think we have time for all that. Maybe it will come up in our next conversation.
Our next.
You want to talk about?
You want to talk about
his flagellation of the.
Charlie, bastardize the whole thing. Anyway.
If you let's end on that. Read Article 146,
right.
subclause 11. The president may at any time suspend, revoke a suspension.
Okay.
So he still has the discretion.
Yes, he
to
does.
change.
Oh, but I think the suspension should stay.
Don't go there.
Thank
Madam
you so
should
much,
go.
Catherine.
Let's have-
Thank you
Don't
so
go
much,
there.
Naya
No.
Sapong, for joining us.
The next on the line.
So at this point, we have suspended their speech. we can move forward.
We have a gentleman. Yeah, it can be revoked. Well, thank you so much. I think it was an interesting conversation.